tell people who you are that are listening.
Kayla Remington. Do you want me to go through my whole background or just say my name?
You can start with your horoscope sign. No, whatever you want
I'm
people
a
to know.
Leo. I like walks on the beach. I can also do a daiquiri.
Nice.
No,
Phoenix born. Or no, it's Utah.
I grew up, I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, and then was there till I was like 19. And then I moved to Arizona with my mom and my sister.
What's the age difference between your sister, by the way?
So about 15 months.
Are you the older? Are you the younger?
But what? Like everybody thinks I'm older. Is it because I'm distinguished?
Because I've known you first. Maybe that's the only reason. I know she's in the industry.
She's.
But I think I met you before. Maybe that's why I just assumed it.
No, I was very fortunate actually to have Kira my whole life, honestly, because we decided to go to college together, and we kind of. That's kind of
where do you guys go to school? ASU?
Yeah, we went to ASU. We got our degrees in construction management.
So 2 girls from. There's a different culture in Salt Lake City than there is in Arizona. How was that culture shift? Was that awesome?
So my in Salt Lake, I was a practicing Mormon, so it was a very big culture shift for me because when I came to Arizona, it just wasn't what I personally wanted anymore. We all grow up with a religion, and we just kind of go into the mold, and then I grew out of it. Still amazing things offer. I still have a lot of friends who do it. But for me, going from Utah to Arizona
ASU
was like complete culture shock. And I remember going into the grocery store and like, wow, you can buy alcohol in a grocery store. Like, this is like
Mormon
amazing.
girls gone wild. That's what we're talking about, right? So you
not that wild.
So you and your sister both got construction management degrees from ASU. Awesome. And then what did you guys do from there? Because she went the engineering route, I thought, right?
We actually both went to college. I think I talked about this when I was speaking at DCAC, but we both went to college to be teachers. And then we ended up getting jobs at a general contractor program, and then we went into the construction management group because they give money to get women. They support women into the construction program. So Kira and I both joined that program, and then she worked at Sun Construction, and I worked at Nitty Brothers Construction for a little bit and jumped around until I ended up at DPR.
That's where I met you, I think.
Yeah, I was at DPR. Cyrus One, right? That's where you were with Cyrus One at that time?
I was at Cyrus still.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Kira left Sun and went to work for KW Engineering.
That's right.
And then I was at Cyrus One, and then I left and went to Hayden, and then I went to Stack, and then I'm at Arizona Game and Fish for a little bit.
What was that? You just threw your sucker in the dirt. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I don't want this game anymore. You want to be in data centers? What happened?
Mental break.
All right. Everything all right?
No, everything's good. I feel like you probably went through it where you push yourself so hard, and then you see, like, it's just kind of like what we've talked about in the past where, like, you see yourself at a certain direction, and then, but you can't always, like, life's never going to give you what you want. It gives you what you need. And I wanted it to go this way, and it went the opposite way. And so it was just like, you know what? I think I'm putting too much into it. I'm too much into my head, like every person, and women do it a lot too. And so I had to take a mental break and like figure out what was important to me, what my priorities are, and like because I'm no good to anybody when I don't even know me. Like, I don't know. If
I think that's
sense.
fantastic. That's leadership courage, they call it, where you have the ability to reflect and go work on those blind spots. And not a lot of people do that. They just go from one to the other, and it's typically because of the things that you were alluding to. They self-impose this need to impress people that don't really care through these negative optics that they think people will actually give a shit about. And like, I'm living proof to where, Laramie and JT are probably the ones that hammer me the most on it, I guess, but I don't care. Right. And they know, like, they're just giving me a hard time. If it wasn't that, it'd be something else. And I'm the same, but I do not apologize for making myself happy and with what I do for my living. Right. Because I need to be fulfilled. I need to be inspired by what I do every day, just like you. I need to work in an environment where I feel safe. I don't know what it's like to be a woman in the workforce with a lot of dudes in this space, but don't think that guys don't feel, unsafe sometimes too, right? And I have to be fulfilled by what I'm doing. Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I just someone's, crutch for something, and I don't really have an opportunity to see a growth path? If I don't have those things, just like you, I will be then why would I bother going home where I'm a miserable person already, and then I'm going to be even more miserable at home? So I have to feed my body something healthy so I feel healthy, and I have to do something that is good for my body that makes me healthy with I enjoy what I'm doing. It just turns out that I've learned that the healthier I am, the more output and productivity I can, and your health is proportionate to your happiness, right? So you got to be happy. Some people won't do that because they're afraid of what others will think, and they'll just outside be everything's fine, and inside they're
No, it's
dying
absolutely
slow
true.
death.
I the same thing. I want to make sure I'm adding value because, like, I know you have to figure out what's a priority to you because we all have like core values set inside us that we have to honor, or else you're gonna feel like you're not going in the right direction. And like a lot of people, I think some of their value is money, but it's never money has just never been like a
That's a normal
priority to
construct.
me. Yeah. And
Well, a
so
lot of people were raised like that.
but I did go through a phase where I was chasing it because I thought it would make something for me. Like I was chasing salary and I was like, "Oh, I want that job because that will pay more." And then you get there and you're like, "This money isn't worth this at all."
It
Like,
giveth with one hand, taketh with the
yeah,
other.
it's like I
Figure
did,
out your pain.
and that I know we all talk about it, but I feel like you kind of sometimes have to go through it personally to
100%.
really understand it. And I went through a phase too, like when I was at Stack, I went through a phase where like if someone called me on the phone with an issue, I felt like I could only succeed if I was the one who like fixed it and got it like again, me and my mental stuff. But and so I would overburden myself because I would take on everybody's challenges because I needed to show them that like I can do this, we can do this together. Like that's the only way I'll be successful is if I'm like constantly. And then I realized I'm actually just hurting them and me because it's what's that old saying where you can give someone a fish and they'll eat for a day, but if you show them how to fish, they eat for your life. And so it's like when someone calls you and they're very anxious and they have a huge issue going on, you're really kind of doing them a disservice by being, well, do this, 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 and this. Like when I should have been like, okay, like, have you worked out what is the factual information about where your problem came up from? Because usually in construction, there's like a factual information. It's usually guys or girls or anyone out on the site who gets worked up about the intensity and the anxiety. And then nobody will actually get rid of the anxiety to focus on the problem. And so I used to just fix it for them because I could get through it quickly. But I wasn't ever, I guess, helping them figure out how to do that for themselves so that they didn't have to call me. They didn't have to take that step. Like they could,
It's normal. That's a
yeah,
maturity,
like,
professional growth thing.
yeah, it all happens. But that's kind of the stuff I'm working on too is like, how do you help someone curb their anxiety? So, because they already have the solution in their head, they just have to get there and they don't need you to solve it for them. Most of the time, they already know it.
So let's back up some more then, because there's a lot of people that are big Kayla fans too, and we've known you for a long time, and I think you probably have.
I was also going to tell you, don't worry, you guys give me just as much crap as you give each other, and I kind
We
of
have
like
to.
it.
You're one of us. You're our sister. We're our brother and
don't-
sister's keeper. We got to look after each other, right? The thing is you've always been well respected, right? Ever since I met you, you definitely have been known as someone that does their shit first, and then at some point, you know, who contributed the greatest to your professional development at that younger age? Because I met you when you were on probably Tom Maple's team at DPR, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you went and you probably had Hector
Yeah.
or LD. I mean,
So, yeah, at DPR, I was Brett Helm and Tom Maples.
okay,
They're both on to Tom's still at DPR, and then, yeah, when I went to Cyrus One, it was,
how long were you at DPR for? And why did you go to them? Was that after you graduated? No, you went to a different place then there, right?
So when I graduated ASU, I was an intern with DPR. Kira worked on a joint venture with them. Sant and DPR was the downtown health sciences or life science building she was building with them. And so I would go have lunch and I got to know the guys at DPR. It was kind of funny because I kind of figured out my personality style compared to Kira. So Sant was more of a structured GC. So they would be like, they had a book and if you needed it, like how to write an RFI, do this, do that. You follow it to the like you can go there and you can follow it step by step. DPR was more of like, you do what works for you as long as it meets our needs. Like you go any way you want. Like you don't have to
A
write
little
an
bit more
RFI.
freedom.
Yeah, like any style you want, you can do it. If it's your management style works this way, we'll accept it, embrace it, and as long as you're not breaking any laws or rules or whatever. So I noticed I was more leaning that way. I like to
Free play.
Yeah, and then Kira liked structure. She so loves like structure and that
Well,
sort of
linear
style.
versus abstract,
Yeah.
right?
And so when I was hanging out with them, they were like, why don't you come be an intern? And then actually Kira introduced me and was like, yeah, she's looking to become an intern. So then I became an intern with them. And then I actually did my first project was eBay on 3rd Street in Phoenix with Dean. Dean was
Shut up.
yeah, it was eBay PayPal with McKinstry.
No way.
And so Dean was they were doing it was when they had 6-foot raised access floors, and I was the shortest, so I was the QA/QC person walking underneath, not hitting my head. And it was like they put a lot of money into it too. It was really cool. It was all Tron themed.
How high were the race floors?
6 feet. Like,
Holy
yeah.
snaps.
And
Okay.
so I was walking through, but they used to have chilled water loops that were like double decker on size, and they like looped around. And so when they would put in the lines, I would have to go through and check because I was the one that could fit in there.
Oh yeah, perfect
Yeah,
fit.
it was like perfect intern grunt work, which I loved. But I also have this weird obsession with liking to do things myself, so I understand it. Like when I was an intern, I was laying block with the block guys, and then they kicked me out because my production rate was horrible. Like they pick it up with one hand and set it and slap it, and it is really heavy. So you have to like.
I'm seeing some OCD-ish type of perfectionist type of tendencies. I can see that.
It was fun though. It was actually really fun. I used to always drive the equipment too at DPR. They would like drive all the backhoes, and the water truck was like my relaxation. I would go water down the site just to zen out in the middle of
Shut up.
Yeah. I actually got told when I was pregnant I wasn't allowed to drive it anymore because it might put me into labor.
Oh wow.
So they were like, no more driving the water truck. You're done. But
dang, I've never heard of that.
you never know.
Well,
Would you
no, I
want to
mean, like,
deliver a
I've
baby?
never look. I've never worked at a construction site where we had to go to one of the ladies driving heavy equipment and say, "Hey, listen, I don't want you to go into labor right here." I've never seen that.
Really?
Listen, it's just not as prevalent as you think, I guess. But I'm sure
No.
it happens. I just don't see it as so.
Yeah, when I was in college, I don't know, JT will probably appreciate this. I was doing a parking lot in Yuma, Arizona. I volunteered to work the 4th of July so that I could make double
Extra money.
And it was 120 degrees, asphalt parking lot. I'm pulling cable through the light pole base so that we can stream up the light pole. And it was just like, I had so much sweat getting caught in my eyes. It was like burning. But I like understood. It just helps you kind of.
The grit. Yeah.
Like you kind of get it all together. So long story. I'm now
But-
into a long story.
No, it's good. I want to hear that story. That's why we have you here, and we booked it a little bit of time because it's important for your story because I don't have enough of those stories.
Oh.
I mean, I could find another. I could throw a dead cat right over there and get a dude in this industry that could come tell me an amazing story. Not as hard, not as easy to find the women in this industry that have the ability to move the needle. Right? It's hard to get them to be here. They just don't like
the dead
doing
cat.
it. Yeah. Well, my thing is up to that point, who was your greatest influence? Was it your mom? Was it like your grandfather? Was it your dad? I mean, big brother, coaches.
It
Were you
was
an athlete, by the way?
probably- I wish I was an athlete. Wish I had athletic ability. It would be amazing. I tried to play So Kira was the softball girl. Like she has
good.
coordination. She has skills. I'm like, I'm your typical girl. I try to throw the softball to my son right now, and he's like, Ma, and I'm like, I know, I'm working on it. Like, I want to look cool throwing a ball too.
funny.
But so she grew up that way. But I would have to say it was my mom a lot and my sister too, because my mom, like, it's funny that when I say I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, people are like, oh yeah, like you probably had the life or like the golden spoon, and you're like, no, like it. In my mom's side of the family, to get a college degree was like, you were rare. Like most of them were just trying to get through high school. So it was like her and Kira and me were always just trying to push ourselves to like be better than what was expected, I guess. And so I'm like super fortunate. And my dad says it all the time where he's like, you're just so lucky to have Kira. And we kind of push each other too. We don't like she's one of I have the conversations with her where you get the weak mind or the victim mind where like, at least I do. I don't know if everybody does.
We all have an inner bitch and an inner
yes,
champion.
The inner voice. And sometimes you start to believe it and you start to like overthink it and you start to spiral. And it's nice when Kira's like, stop. Like you are out of control. Like you are thinking things like I told her about when I was leaving Stack, like, I'm going to be the Black Plague of the industry. Everyone's, I know, saying it now. It sounds very weak, but Kira was the one that's like, do you even hear yourself talking right now? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm not. Like I'm in my own movie making creating personas. And I feel like that kind of happens a lot to people when they get spiral out of control at work. But
Oh, no, it's not you. It's everybody. It's our brains are wired to be in a defensive posture all
yeah,
the time. So we're constantly. That's why solitary confinement is one of the harshest forms of
yeah.
punishment because they want to leave you to your own brain because they know your thought cycle is going to default into something negative.
When if you think about it, we are like the winning species from caveman. Like our genes helped us survive, like dying from like
Being
animals and
paranoid. I'm going to
starve.
freeze to death. I'm
So
going
our
to.
minds are just constantly projecting how we are going to die.
Exactly.
But there's really nothing here we need to die from.
Or you just have to not worry about it and just be like, hey,
Yeah, because you don't have anything to worry
you can't
about.
control everything. Just
Yeah.
go out and enjoy your life. So to that end, so you left
Oh.
DPR. Hold on. So that nucleus of family is what, I mean, it sounds like you guys were pressure testing each other, you and your sister, which I'm not even a little bit
Constantly.
surprised about, right? And then you guys end up in Phoenix and you go to Arizona, you go to the whatever, then you go to DPR. From DPR, you went
Yes.
to Cyrus.
Yep. I went
right?
so to finish off the DPR story, when I was done being an intern there, they sent me to San Francisco to build the UCSF Mission Bay Hospital. So I did the exterior skins, and then
Was that a greenfield, brownfield retrofit?
yeah, it was right
I'm
by
guessing
the
retrofit.
Mission ballpark, the AT&T Mission ballpark. It was like right on the other side. So, and it was by the Salesforce condo. He actually donated because he had a children's hospital. So what's the guy's name? The owner of Salesforce. He donated a bunch
Mark
of money.
Benioff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I built that. And then after 3 or 4 years, I transferred back to Phoenix. And when I came back, since I did Mission Critical with Dean in Phoenix when I started, and then I went to hospitals. So when I came back, they were like, let's just put her back on a Mission Critical project. Cyrus One with
Did you
Ivan.
want to do that though? Or did you want to build hospitals more?
So I just
Or
wanted
did
to
you not care?
I just wanted to get back to Phoenix. I didn't care. I really enjoyed UCSF Mission Bay though. Like there was so many. His name was Brett, and he was an architect from Skanska. No, not Skanska. Stantec. And so I used to think that it was painful to work for the people that just like push you all the time. Like when you're young, you're like, man, I don't want to work for that guy. He just is constantly pressuring me and putting I learned the most and got the most out of working with him because you would send in an RFI and he would, because I'm an engineer, I was a project engineer really young, and you'd send it in and he was like a little English teacher. He would red mark, just slaughter you. He would absolutely slaughter you. And I think at the end he would put stuff like, do you even know what you're talking about? And it was like, it was so brutal. But I learned so much in like 6 months.
Was he an architect or an engineer?
Oh, he was an architect. Oh, yeah.
Total
he
psychopath.
was. Oh, yeah. But I loved every minute of him. We were doing a site walk, and it took me. It was like a love-hate relationship. But then we like, oh man, he's so great. But one of the times we were walking, and he had these beautiful glazing fins that would stick outside of a building, and it was like glass. What's it called when it's colored glass, stained glass. So it's like, but it was in a sort of pattern so that when the light hit it exactly, it would come onto the sidewalk and make like art. So
that's
as you were
awesome.
walking on the sidewalk, it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. And so like we had a spine in between the two hospitals and it had air handler units on it. But you know, like there's so many knobs on an air handler unit and they were higher than the precast parapet. So you could see it popping out. And so one of the days where we were walking back from lunch, he's like, Kayla, I need you to take a minute. I'm like, okay. It's like, I'm dead. I'm dying on a stretcher. And all I see is these horrible air handler units. And I was like, Brett, I don't think if I'm dying, I'm really caring.
Yeah,
about
no
air
kidding.
handler.
That's
It's
not
like,
the thing you worry about.
And he looked at me, he's like, touche, okay, man.
That's
We
an
were like-
architect story.
But
though.
it was just funny. We used to banter and it took us a while to get there, but learned so much. So it was a really great project. I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed like the way that office in San Francisco was built. The culture was just amazing. And then, but I had to come back to Phoenix. My family,
Were you already married by this point?
I was engaged.
Okay.
So it was
Firefighter,
forest
jumper.
firefighter.
He like jumps into planes, or is he going in the truck?
Started out that way, so he did everything. He was a hot shot. He was for the hot shot crew.
So what is a hot shot? That's the part.
So there's a hot shot is the guy they send into the fire to like drag the lines and like so if
To
there's
direct the fire?
Yeah. So if there's a fire coming down the hill, they'll like scrape it so they create a line
Yeah.
so that the fire follows that. And they're the guys they call in first. Like they pretty much
It's
come in.
hardcore.
And then the smoke jumpers are the kind of similar, but they drop them where areas you can't. They hardly use them anymore because they have a high death rate and it's
Yeah,
really
that's
risky.
super dangerous.
So they don't use them a lot. They're still around.
Did he like doing that though?
So his new grievance is that that's his passion. He loves
Smoke jumping?
fighting fire.
Oh.
Well, he just loves fighting fire because then he had an engine after that. So then he became a captain of an engine, and then they're behind it. But now he's like in the management part. So
No fun anymore.
now he has to sit in a tent and manage it and track it and
Ugh.
like. So he loves it, but he also misses the like.
Take a number.
yeah.
Every player gets done. You know,
Yeah,
I get it.
everybody misses the
Yeah.
action. So he's currently going through that right now. But
Well, that's why you got to enjoy it while you can. That's why you got to enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty cool. I remember you telling us crazy stories about that. I have to have a beer with that guy one day. Just to
you
hear.
do.
I bet he's got crazy stories.
We had dinner one night and you were wearing, that shirt with had
Inappropriate shirt of some
yeah,
kind.
yeah. So he wears the same. I'm like, you have to meet this guy, Kirk, because you and him wear the same clothes and you have the same like tendencies.
Bring him to DCAC.
Yeah, he needs to come because seriously, he's exactly like you.
Awesome.
He's got a huge beard. And he looks homeless most of the time, but
He's a firefighter, man. He's supposed to
Oh,
look bush
yeah.
like that. Those guys are the lumberjacks.
and no, it's kind of nice to talk to him too because I tell him about a lot of the WIMCO women stuff that I do, and they're really pushing him and promoting him to bring women into the field.
Of course.
So it's kind of nice to hear because he has a very different manly kind of vibe that he has to have girls do like that. The physical intensity of doing that work is just insane. So
It is.
and his trying to find women who will take that on is quite the task.
It's true. And you don't want to compromise the standard, right? Because it's about saving lives and
Yeah.
saving property and stuff. But it's really important that we hope to find a way to. I think that there's a lot of stupid constructs that were traditions of maybe the way that we were all raised, where people are like, you're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to go to school and get good grades. And then you go to this thing, and if you go to good college, you can make, and then if you make all that money, then you be happy. And there's this whole bullshit homogenous thing. So we just kind of buy into things because people tell us, yeah, that's what you're supposed
Yeah.
to do. And then finally, you're like, why do I have to do that again? Right? So I think there's a whole new wave of like, not resistance, but people that are like, why am I'm just going to reinvent fire. Let's just figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. No, it's actually I think I talked about it too at TCAC when I was talking, but it's kind of the same thing where because he has males he's worked with in his past life that have felt that they couldn't put their livelihood or feel like they would be safe counting on a woman to be on the engine because they're like, she can't handle it. She can't lift the
Well,
loads.
is that what it is? Because
Yeah.
look, let's just be honest.
They have pack tests. You have to carry so much on your back. You have to do everything.
Yeah.
But we talk about it and I'm like, but I'm sure there's guys on your engine or
That would
guys that
struggle
you've
with it.
had that also struggle. But it's like you said, it's in your head, the stereotypes of what, and it's hard to let go because just like we were cavemen and we had to learn how not to get eaten by a like saber-toothed tiger back then, we still have that ingrained in us in the back of our brain. You can't
100%.
fight it.
I think though, there is a whole new push where there are like my daughter and I were watching a movie. It was called The Outpost, and at the end, it's these army guys getting overran a little bit, and then this helicopter, this Apache longbow, comes in and just kind of lays waste to a bunch of the bad guys. And over the radio, it's a woman talking trash on the dudes, like, "Hey, here we got your back," and blah blah blah. And my daughter heard that, and she's like, "Girls could fly helicopters." I'm like, "You could do anything." Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm now pushing her into non-traditional things because I'm like, what do you think you want to do when you get older? And she's talking about like, there's teachers and nurses and all these things. And I'm like, those things are great. Why don't you go be the CEO of a company that builds this or does that? Why not be a firefighter? Why not fly helicopters? So I'm doing my best too. I think most of us guys
Yeah.
are because we have daughters. We don't want to see them be capped and limited. We're not in those traditions of society anymore to where they're like,
You have to follow that stereotype.
I think that, like,
It's the same thing with men too, though. Like I'm sure Henry, when he was little, had so much energy in daycare, and they really, for some reason, they only had like activities like tumbling and dancing. So I signed him up for it. My husband was like, "You did what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, everyone could do some tumbling and some dancing."
Mm.
I know it was.
That's a mom move. That's not a
It's
dad
total-
move.
I know,
You're like,
it
you
was a
can,
total-
but he's going to have some explaining to do when he goes to soccer
He
practice
could be
tomorrow.
on the next Disney Channel High School
Hey,
Musical.
we're only messing around.
I know.
If
I'm
it
just
wasn't
teasing.
that, I mean, our kids are going to be messed. I mean, kids are horrible. I mean, they're all awesome. We love our kids, but they're just not, they aren't born with the answers and the knowledge and how to engage other humans. It's learned.
Yeah.
And until they're learning, they're just constantly running into each other with mean things and this and that. And it's just part of life. I mean, we're all like that probably at some point, right?
Oh no, it's literally before I came here, I asked my son what he wanted for breakfast, and he's like, I want anything but eggs. All I ever eat is eggs. But I had already made eggs, so I just gave it to him, and I was like, here's your eggs. And he would not eat his breakfast. And I'm like, well, just don't eat the eggs. You have like everything else to eat. And he's like, just so disgusted that like I made him eggs when he was very specific about not wanting eggs.
It's a horrible mom thing to do. I don't know what you're thinking.
And I'm like, you don't think
Bad
I'm like,
parenting
you're
right
gonna have
there.
things in life you don't want. You have to now
Yeah.
accept it and move on. Eat the ham, eat the toast, leave the legs alone, leave the eggs alone.
No, you got to hand it to him like, oh, you want cereal? Here's your cereal. And it's just a big plate of eggs. Eat your cereal.
Out of spite,
That's-
I'm gonna make him eggs.
That's how my
It's mom
life.
spite.
That's how I was raised.
No,
All right,
me too.
so you it sounds like you had a pretty strong collection of people that were pouring into you and helping. Were they directly or indirectly teaching you how to grow and develop?
So yeah, that was kind of my point. Is like some of the strongest. There's just people in your life that you didn't expect to be your like leader or mentor. Like it's just, but they did. They ended up being that way. Like when I went to Cyrus One, there was so many people. Like Mike Connell from Corrigan,
Yeah.
amazing.
Smart
and
guy.
he would come in every Wednesday and do site walks with Billy Dressel, also a great guy. And he, even though I was with DPR at the time, it was before I went to Cyrus One, he had no reason to give me time or try to train me or anything. Like he worked for Corrigan completely. Like there was no reason for him to even like help me in
Fairly
any way.
senior at Corrigan too.
Yeah, and he has bigger fish to fry than a little project engineer from DPR, but he would every time he came in on Wednesday, we would set up a meeting, he would walk me, he would like show me things, teach me things like Kayla this, and it's just an amazing experience because he would always give me time. He was the busiest guy, and he would come into town and everybody wanted a piece of him, but he would be like, anything you need, like what are your questions? He'd walk through everything with me, and he would show, and then Billy was always patient too, and it kind of, and then that's when Cyrus One approached me and asked me to stay because like we were just bonding so well and had a great team. And I didn't want to leave DPR because it was fun, but you also have to keep growing. And I wanted to be home more with my son because I was driving all over the place. But so then I went to Cyrus One, and Hector once again was this little, he was just this little guy that had a full on, if he wanted
The most
something.
epic mustache of all time.
Epic mustache.
Yes, but yeah, he is still.
But I learned a lot from him too, and it was like
super smart.
you always think that the mentors or the people who are going to give you the most feedback are the nice ones, where they just like nurture you like a mom, I guess you would say, or like where you just get. But it's actually was opposite for me. It was the people that made things difficult for me. Not difficult, but they didn't let me take the easy road. They were always like, work hard, try, do this, and I learned. It was just a learning curve for me to realize that those people were the ones that pushed me to be my best. Like they're the ones that don't want you to take the easy road. They want you to keep learning, keep growing. And Laramie too. He definitely loves to throw a little zingers at you to keep you on your toes.
I don't.
No, that's never happened. That's never happened to you. It's always puppies and pansies.
Yeah, I mean, look, he runs a tight ship. I've been on the back end of his stick before too, right? And you have to, once you were probably at Cyrus, now you understand the magnitude of pressure that goes into the investment committees, to let alone managing the trades from a safety and budget and schedule perspective. But there's a lot going on, man, and it's a very kinetic situation.
Oh yeah.
I don't ever people that are in those types of roles, no matter how cagey they could get, sometimes I'm like, I get it. I totally understand.
There was like, so while he does love to throw you a joke or two, I do remember there was one time he was out of town or he was somewhere, and we had a data hall that was trying to lock down, and it was having a little bit of issues, and it was kind of intense. And I'd only been there like a year, and I don't know, Hector, I can't remember what Hector was doing, but one of the clients, like, he was really high up there up the food chain. Laramie like sent me a text, and he's like, hey, you're going to get a call from this guy who's really high up there. Just let him know why you're having these issues and what we're doing. And I remember just being like, I had the anxiety, the panic, everything was like going through because I had to basically tell that guy that it was his own team. Like they were in their own way. And I was like, I didn't feel like I am not capable of managing this or delivering this news. And he's like, and he always was really good at like sending you messages like, hey, I got you. You got this. You can do it. And like he never, I guess he didn't do what I did when I told you in the beginning where I had like anxiety and he just coached you to just stay strong and pull through. Like that's all you got to do.
The thing that I always told people, because I'd be around, and I mean, was there anybody that was doing more volume maybe at that time? I mean, and Hector had a pile of experience because he came from digital, right? So between Hector and LD out there, I mean, there was just a plethora of capacity and capabilities, and I think that people they would talk about how hard he runs with a razor's edge on some of the things he had to do, and I think we all got it. And I'm like, I remember sitting around, people have their little pity parties about shit and who's mean and this and that. I'm like, not for nothing, but he's always been fair. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't push hard, but he's like, if you want to be great, you're gonna have to.
No, we've never he will always. So I'm sure there's some men, women, everyone will get a little bit of an ego to where they can't strip away a little bit of emotion to it.
Why are you looking at me while you talk about the ego part? I'm sitting right here.
Do you remember when I was at Hayden, you were at line? No, I'm just kidding.
I was nice.
I'm just
our
teasing.
relationship has never changed.
We never had a problem.
No, God.
But I always enjoyed that we could just bluntly say how it was. We didn't have to tiptoe or dance or.
And it should always be like that.
Yeah, never tiptoed at any chance. But some people, I just always appreciate it because Laramie always delivers it that way too. He never
black and white.
Yeah, and I've never wanted someone to not be honest with me because especially on a job site, it comes down to you have to be able to start trusting each other, or from the very get go, it's all just gonna fall apart.
But it really comes down to trust.
And if you can't be honest and open with someone, then there's just no point in you even doing it because then they're just gonna hide stuff. You're gonna hide stuff, and then it always just goes bad south quick. So, but it's also hard for people to trust people because construction has such a bad. It's the same thing, the same the same bad thing where the general contractor thinks that the owner's trying to get them, and the sub thinks the GC is trying to get them, and the vendor thinks that they're all just trying to get them. And it's
really just the GC who's the jerks, right?
Oh yeah, it's just me. But it all comes you have stigmas at each level.
Yeah.
That from the very beginning, people come in guarded because they've got a stigma about it, and so from the very get go, you have to help them calm. Just probably like you at this podcast where you made me talk a little bit to calm down so you can talk, but. You have to get people to lower their defenses so that you can figure out how to meet in the middle and trust. Because you could spend your whole life thinking that this GC's just out to get you. I also love when people judge you because of a company name. It's so just because I went to elementary school with someone named Kayla who was mean to me, all Kaylas are just horrible people.
That's true. I've heard that.
I worked with this company before and I can't stand them, so I'll never use them again. I'm well, you do realize they hire people. The company isn't the person. I get why. I've worked with people too and judged them because of the company they came from. But now that I'm older and wiser, not that much wiser.
But that's how you got there. I mean, we all that's what I'm saying is when you see kids do stupid shit, you're well, they're kids. That's what they're supposed to do at that age, and they're not born with the shit. You learn it and you collect it over the course of time. We all showed up in this industry and we're why aren't you guys just doing this? It's so much easier. And then you realize, oh, I get it.
There's background stigma that I have to deal with.
Yeah, there's a lot of drag and resistance on change, right? Especially when you're in a kinetic. I've always said that I think that construction is like combat. Not personally have I ever been in combat, but what I have seen is a trend in which the people that I have from combat that sit in those roles, they thrive better than submariners do. And I'll tell you, it's because, the famous quote they always have is Mike Tyson's quote, everyone had a plan until, I punched him in the face. And a construction project never goes as planned.
Oh, never.
The only thing that doesn't change in a construction project from the day that it starts and the day that it ends is the schedule. That's the only thing that don't change is the schedule, but everything else is going to change.
Well, there's also a thing to me that schedules are a living document. And you have a start, you have an end date but there's some people that just get so caught up on but you said on this date, like the base was going to be in. And it's like,
3 days
the
out, a
base
week
will
out. Yeah.
be in when the base is in.
Yeah.
Like, let's not get caught up on that. Like, your electrical power is being commissioned right now. Like, everything's going through startup. Well, I promise you the base will be in the next 2 months by the time I'm ready to be done. But that's kind
trust.
of, people always get caught up on some of the,
Well, it's insecurities, it's
Yeah.
trust. It's not
yeah,
on
like
you.
I know it's always that like stigma. Oh, I've had contractors that don't finish their work.
Take a
I
number.
have too.
Yeah,
Like,
we all
I've
have.
had it too, but you just follow through and push it. But so it's always fun I always tell people too, it's the younger like not younger, but a lot of the interns that I had would have the stigma of construction and think that they had to come in just guns ablazing to every meeting.
Yeah.
And you're like, you said it here, and now we're already here. Like, we haven't. It's just a fun, but I still enjoy it. I still enjoy watching it, especially young people, because you were there, we were there, we had to experience it. So you get to watch them like, okay, now I'm here, and now I'm going to learn this, and especially construction, it's just so much fun to watch them try to figure it out.
But in that role, sadly, the only things you learn from are the things that you did wrong, right? So you have to collect scars and you have to make mistakes, and then you have to figure out how to maintain schedule. And,
Yep.
there's a million things, but I think that's why I actually liked that stuff. I mean, I started in operations and got into all kinds of different shit and then went back to that type of stuff. And I found that I like how messy it is. I like how no 2 days are ever the same. I love how every day's a surprise when you show up to a construction site because you have no idea which transformer fell off the back of the whatever and what electrician did this and what happened to that piece of you know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah, like, and the one thing you can always expect in construction is it will never be perfect.
Mhm.
But because I think you had Huckabee on here, but I think he said it too. They're just people. It is a person out there using their hands to put it together. If it was perfect, robots would be doing it.
it can only be as perfect as the human.
Yeah.
Right. And we humans are just never perfect. Right. So he's like, lower your expectations, bro. And I mean, he's the quintessential. Sam is one of the best at that, in my opinion, because he's also like you, massively cerebral. So you guys, that's a blessing and a curse. Your level of intelligence and his, because you'll overthink too much.
Oh, all the
See,
time.
if you're a caveman like me, you're thinking about the 50-meter target and that's it. You're like, what am I doing today?
But we need each other.
Right. That's the offsetting balance, right? You have to have people that are thinking the long game and those that are like, let's just hold my beer. You need those groups like us too, right?
Yeah, you need people like you to call me out when my mind is over spinning. Like, stop spinning, because I will. I can go on forever and probably. But that's also the other thing too, is when you are
you'll outgrow that. You will.
One day. But the perfection part too is hard for people to let go, because
You'll
like,
let go of that too.
Yeah, you got to let go of like understanding that there are going to be issues, and if they're not issues, there's probably something wrong because someone's not talking to you or telling you what they are. Like,
I think it's okay to strive for that, but you better be able to accept.
Perfection, you should always try.
Yeah.
But that would be like thinking my son Henry is going to be perfect. He will be
because he's yours.
It's mine.
I got it. It'll be really short, I'm guessing too. No, I'm.
Well, my husband's 6'2", so we'll see.
So now you'll have an average size person.
There'll be one in the middle to balance us out because we're like
that's
off
hilarious.
level. I always joke about that, but he is going to get his height because he's already almost taller than me.
So how much did you learn? What was the greatest thing that you learned? That was your first operator. So what was the greatest value of that? Because you went GC operator, and then you're like, hey, I think I still like this GC thing. So you went back to that.
So I think it was just remembering like the things you enjoy about construction. You know, like I really enjoy. I like when a problem comes up and walking it, and then we all kind of look at it and we're like, do all we have to do is this? And they're like, yeah, that's the solution. Like, or I used to love concrete. I don't know why. I had a weird thing where I was really
That is a
into
weird thing. Super weird.
Concrete is the worst too, because if you pour it wrong, you have to chip it out. And San Francisco. Anyways, so I think I wanted to go back to just relive it because it was a really amazing time for me. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I wanted to be a teacher. And then I switched and went to construction, not really like, I mean, you do projects at your house and stuff, but you don't really understand like the complexity that you're about to jump into. And then I really love the problem solving, the challenges, like, and helping people put the pieces together to fix it. And then when I went to Cyrus One, left there, and maybe I have a tendency to want to go back to like comfort me, like what I've done before, like give me a little comfort and go back. And honestly, Gary and Katie were really really great to me.
And they were putting together a pretty good band. It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
like you were the only DPR one there. There was
Yeah.
some great alumni there. They had that's not where Dilly went, is it?
He almost did. Mike Dill almost went there. He's at Clayco now, but
Yeah.
he ended up staying at DPR. And it was exciting to think of trying to start something because they wanted to start a new mission critical group. And it was exciting to think
Yeah.
about like bringing up people and teaching them what I know and like helping them become the next.
And
people.
Gary, I've always got along with Gary. I've
Oh, yeah.
class
Humblest guy
act.
ever.
Yeah, super nice
And
guy.
actually, Katie's daughter is going to be a welder. She's welding. She's
That's
working
awesome.
in Gary's equipment yard welding buckets. It's
Cool.
just amazing there.
That's
Very humble.
fantastic.
But, so when I did that, I think...
Didn't I? I'm the one too that's like, hey, I turn off my ringer. We're good to go. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, I got my ringer. I should probably hide it.
No, I'm an idiot. Sorry.
So then I just wanted to do like, it was still great and the mission was there and I felt like I went for a purpose, but it was just, I don't know, like when you're, I was like, I also had a tendency to cut it off. Like I just,
Get
you
bored
know-
fast?
well, you know how like it's really hard to hire people. So when I started at Hayden, Cyrus One, Jeff Devine hired me to do 4.5 megawatts like right away. And we had I just got hired, everything was new, and we didn't have a team. So instead of this is also something I guess you learn as you grow. Instead of putting more effort into just trying to bring people on, I was like
I'll just do more.
I'll do all
I'll
of
just
the
do all the
I'm
work.
gonna do all the work and then hope that they find someone in the background for me. Like, and so I was I'll
Killing
never
yourself?
forget Billy Dress was like, why are you sending in RFI submittals, doing the OAC meetings, and you're also the superintendent updating the schedule? I'm like, well, I'm trying to hire people. I'm trying to get them because I also wanted to make sure I had the right people. Like, yeah, I overcomplicated everything because I was trying to make a perfect thing. When you
But
said,
was that you? Is that something else that's imposed on you? Is that how you always are? Is that because you're a woman in a heavily male-dominated industry?
I do think I felt pressure to prove that I could do this. Like I can build a team that typically, I don't mean this in a bad way, but a male could build, I guess you would say. But
Is there pressure? Have you felt pressure up to this point? Or you had limitations because you were a female?
personally for me, the only pressure I ever felt was from me. Like I always put a lot of pressure on myself. Like, but I think that also comes from like I've actually spoke to a lot of women. It's kind of we have a lot of pressure and you're so tired.
Oh, I've had a long couple days. Don't judge me. Why are you judging me?
Judge me, you judger 10.
I got bad habits. You know this. You have them too.
I'm into a song now. I'm into a song.
Keep going.
So, what was I lost my train of thought. What were we
You were talking about you're talking to a lot of girls and they were
Oh, yeah. So I think it's just kind of a tendency for
like
us.
self-imposed something.
Yeah, to like, if we're not getting, and I hate to say validation, but if we're not getting like recognition, we want to work harder because we don't want to ask that we're doing. It's a weird thing where we don't want to ask that we're doing good, but if we're not like getting the acknowledgement, if we're not hearing it, we'll keep working harder and harder and harder, and we'll have a tendency to push ourselves to burnout to try and prove something or prove it. Like, I don't know if you remember me talking about that at DCAC up on stage where it's like, and then when the raises come and you don't get a raise, it's like world breaking because you're like, but I've been busting my butt all year long. But then you're also kind of afraid to bring it up because you have this like, like I remember there was a few times where I was like, man, I'm kind of scared. And that's kind of where, when we were talking about women in the industry, where it's a nice thing if there's a male coach or someone, it doesn't even have to be male, but another woman, like just someone to help give them confidence. Like I was actually terrified to negotiate salary because it was like, I'm not worth. And actually Jennifer Ringener is the one who's like, someone helped coach her on how to negotiate salaries. And she was like, you deserve this, fight for this, do this. It's like, I don't know. What if I don't? Like, what if I'm not worthy of it? And she's like, you are. Know your own worth. Like, go in there. And again, it's hard because you need someone to say that to you. Yeah, even though you should say it to yourself.
But that's not a female thing.
Have you seen Mel Robbins where she slaps herself in the mirror, like air high five every morning?
No.
You never?
No. But you have to send me a video of that or something. But
yeah, she's like a coach, like a personal whatever, mind brain coach or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you, girls don't own the market on those insecurities, and I think there's just an our company did a 360, and then I did a a couple quarters, and then we did another survey right after that to figure out how many of my blind spots was I able to fix. Those
I have a
360.
lot of those blind spots.
Well, I have enough for the both of us in case you don't have enough. But it's interesting because I've learned, affirmation is just something that regardless if you're a man or a woman, I've discovered that I don't give enough of it, period. Right. And that was one of my biggest blind spots. And it's maybe because the way I was raised or the way, I lead the way I want to be led. And sometimes I don't need a lot of affirmation sometimes. So maybe I just sometimes don't get it. But I realize it's really important to give it.
It's everyone's different. Everyone's modeled different. So
Right.
like you don't need what is that, love language or words of love or affirmation or whatever, but like you don't need it, but some people do need
Mhm.
it. And then because they need it, they have a fear of like asking for it. So
No, it's a
like
healthy
it goes,
balance when you ask.
it's like you have to bring yourself up. Well, first you have to recognize you do it, and then you can stop yourself from doing it. Because sometimes you're just so in the zone, you don't even know that you're like, am I over here just feeling bad for myself, wanting someone to tell me I'm special? But yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes you just need. I think I got into a conversation the other night with someone about that. It's kind of related to marriage, but where some women, when they're stay-at-home moms, their tasks become normal, like it's day-to-day life. But sometimes they just want to be able to come home and be like, hey, thank you for keeping up the house, or thank you for everything you do. I couldn't be at work if you weren't here supporting the house so that I can go to work stress-free. Like, thank you. But you just get so into a system and a model, you forget to say thank you because it comes standard. Like getting to your car, you don't tell your car thank you for getting me to work every day, but humans need it sometimes, and sometimes it feels out of place to give that to people too. Like you don't want to. I don't know, my son, I don't want to constantly tell him, you're so good at your homework, you're so good at your homework, but
As long as you're willing to give them the truth on the bad days too, because we all have bad days, right?
well, I think that's something I super need to work on is the feedback or the criticism. What is it? The crucial conversations. I've read that book like 3 times because it's those like, I always want to try and protect people and their feelings, but by doing that, I am not actually giving them what they need. Like if I try to pretend like, oh, I'll just wait this out and hopefully it goes away, it never goes away. It usually gets worse when you just need to go and have that crucial conversation, give that crucial feedback. And yeah, it'll sting for a minute, but at least they can understand it, get over it, not get over it, but grow from it and then move on. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you hide from something because you don't want to confront it, it'll fester, and probably be 10 times
Oh
worse
yeah,
than it
bad
was.
shit doesn't
Yeah.
get better over time.
No, it doesn't just disappear. And I used to want to protect people and protect people's feelings because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, but you're going to hurt everybody's feelings. You hurt people's feelings every day. But you can do it. What is that saying where honesty without, like, you can be honest, but if you say it with cruelty, then it's not good honesty.
Well, that takes us back to where trust is the most vital part of every
Yeah.
relationship because it's the foundation that you can launch anything from. And if you don't trust me, then I can't have those unfiltered or candid conversations with you, which are between mentor and mentee, or a coaching relationship or a teaching relationship. And if you don't have that trust, then it's just an attack, right? But
Yep.
I would say this is, we are wired different, men and women, but that doesn't mean that we have way more that we're in common with and we're not in terms of our mentality. Women have just as much fortitude. I've seen plenty of women do circles around some of the most impressive guys I've seen in this space. So the military doesn't give a shit about that, right? I mean, I was born and raised on a military base my whole life. So like I was not really I was introduced to racism and sexism and like the construct of those things that existed later in life because they didn't exist where I was at, because no one gives a shit what you are. They don't care. If you're in the military and you're serving with another person, your life is in their hands and vice versa. You're not really asking about his religion or, who do you vote for? Like you
Yeah.
just don't care about those things. You're like, did you train? Are we trained? Are we good? Like we're going to live, right? Because that's why combat people are always the best in construction, because I've literally seen pressure in programs, and you've seen it too.
Oh, yeah.
And then I watch guys that are like, we're all going home today. No one's going to die. Did you get shut out today? I didn't either. So let's just figure out the problem. And let's realize we're going to get through it, right? This is not the worst problem. And they just have a relativity that they could layer on top of things.